British Columbia's Minister of Forests is in Ottawa this week to meet with federal officials, seeking continued support for its struggling softwood lumber sector. Ravi Parmar met with the International Trade Minister, Minister Sidhu, yesterday. In a post on X, Sidhu said from Japan to South Korea, China and beyond, we're knocking on every door to create new opportunities for Canadian lumber. Canada's softwood lumber industry has been hit hard by a 45% U.S. tariff since last October, compounding a 4-decade-long dispute between the two countries. For more on how this is impacting British Columbia, Ravi Parmar joins me now. Nice to see you, Minister. Thanks for coming in.
Nice to see you, JP. Thanks for having me.
In person. I love it.
Absolutely.
So obviously Trump's tariffs and duties are wreaking havoc on the softwood lumber industry. They're adding up to 45%, just a huge burden for the sector. You met with the feds. Did they tell you anything that you wanted to hear? Is there any progress with the Americans on getting some of those lifted?
Quick answer, no. Doesn't seem like it. It doesn't seem like the Americans want to talk about softwood lumber and the fact that these duties and tariffs are not only hurting workers here in Canada, but more importantly for Americans, it's leading to them not being able to build the homes they need. Just ask the U.S. home builders what this means for them. And so, without a doubt, I have to say the federal government has been a strong partner. We have seen a considerable shift under the Trudeau administration to Prime Minister Carney. They're stepping up. They've got a task force that's investigating how we can transform this sector. And my message to them this week has been, look, we want a long-term softwood lumber deal. We need the federal government to prioritize softwood. For us in British Columbia, softwood is our auto sector, it's our steel sector. And sometimes we feel a bit left out. It's why we have to come up here to Ottawa more and more to be able to remind the federal government that we exist, we want their support, we need their support, and our workers matter just as much as workers here in Ontario as well.
You mentioned the home builders. They're very active on this file. I saw a press release from them recently highlighting how home prices have gone up, and they're pointing to softwood lumber duties and tariffs as one potential reason why. There's another lobby group, though, that is pleased with what's going on. We heard from the U.S. Lumber Coalition. That's the lobby group that essentially convinced the Trump administration to slap these higher levies on Canadian wood. They're bragging, basically, in a press release out this week. They're gleefully recounting how Canadian producers have now have much lower market share in the United States as a result of these tariffs and duties. I want to read you one line in particular. They say, Canada must address its harmful and disruptive massive excess lumber capacity by downsizing its lumber industry. We must continue on this track and force Canadian market share into the low single digits in order to eliminate its unfair trade practices. They're essentially cheerleading the crippling of the industry in your province. How do you fight back?
Well, I would say that organization is a complete joke, complete nonsense. They continue to misinform Americans every single day. If you want to talk about an organization that is creating harm in cities and states across the United States, it's the U.S. Lumber Coalition. It's an organization that is absolutely hell-bent on not allowing Americans to be able to build homes. We here in British Columbia and throughout Canada are proud to help our American brothers and sisters build the homes they need. And right now, that coalition continues to spread misinformation. The only factual thing that they've provided within that press release is our numbers are going down, but it's not being filled with U.S. producers. In the U.S. South, sawmills are going down every single day. Some of it has to do with their workforce challenges with immigration, but I'm sure that'll be a conversation for another day. But one of the biggest challenges they face is they don't have the capacity to be able to provide the wood they need. Our wood is better. They need our trees. And I would add what we've seen is a decline in Canadian lumber heading down, and that's being filled with European lumber. And so they should really do the math. They should really dig into the numbers and stop putting out ridiculous statements. And I would say to them, if you want to solve the challenges and create a stronger, prosperous forest sector in the United States, work with Canada, work with your partner. Doing this, putting out bogus press releases is not the way to answer.
Let's review what the U.S. Lumber Coalition has helped achieve. I mean, since 2023, 21 permanent or indefinite mill closures, right? More than 15,000 forest sector jobs have been lost. On the BC coast, 10 mills have permanently closed since 2018, 5,800 job losses there. This is their work, right? The Lumber Coalition is driving jobs and mills out of your province. Devastating, I imagine, to these communities. So many communities literally based around these mills. Are you getting the help you need? You mentioned that the federal government seems seized with the auto issue. Do you think that what the feds have put on the table to this point is enough to make up for what is a really devastating development?
Well, you're absolutely right, JP. Forestry is the foundational industry for British Columbia. Not only is it for the small towns and communities that I've had the honor and privilege of visiting over the course of the last year since I became BC's Minister of Forests, it is the lifeblood of our province in the case of investments and services and the public infrastructure we count on. It provides good revenue, 50,000 jobs, 50,000 direct jobs, 100,000 indirect jobs. But you're absolutely right. These duties and tariffs and this continued battle with the United States poses a lot of challenge on us. And it's why we have to transform this sector. And so I would say to the federal government, they have been helping us stabilize. What I've come to Ottawa is looking for a partner to help transform this sector. And based on what I'm hearing, I hear from Minister Hodson, from Minister LeBlanc, I'm going to be meeting with Minister Jolie tomorrow. I hear a government that is committed to working with us, but obviously time will tell whether they say what they're saying and actually deliver. That is going to be hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars that they're going to need to be able to deliver to keep jobs and also grow this sector. Lots of opportunities exist. We need to grow Canada's forest sector. Forestry is a strategic economic asset. And again, I don't want to pit workers against workers. Auto workers matter, steel workers matter, but sometimes it does feel that forestry workers don't matter as much. And it's why we're here. It's why British Columbia will continue to make the case, and why me as Minister of Forests, this is not just about workers in BC, this is about forestry workers from coast to coast to coast, and we're going to fight like hell for them.
You have to remind Ottawa that you exist, that you're a problem. I mean, they put $1.2 billion on the table last year, right, in loans and support and investments. Is that having any impact, or is that why you're here? Like, what has already been offered is just not enough? Well,
look, it's a good start. And I guess the message that I would have to the federal government and what I've been relaying to them is it's a good start, but if we don't get a long-term softwood lumber deal, or if Trump, God forbid, adds more tariffs onto us, then we're going to need more support. And the province is stepping up and providing more support. We are leading trade diversification. I just came back a couple of months ago from the largest forest sector trade mission to Japan and South Korea in our history. The Premier, David Eby, was just in India. There's huge opportunities for us to be able to forge powerful partnerships. But in order to transform this sector, in order to stabilize it even further from job losses, we need the federal government to step up. They're saying the right things. They're investing their dollars. We've got strong partnerships. This is just an opportunity for me to be here in Ottawa, physically sitting right across from them, not from a Zoom screen, saying to them that we need them. We need them not only for us as a government, but our workers. Our workers need the federal government to step up, and I'm feeling very optimistic based on the conversations that the federal government has heard us, and the Prime Minister hopefully will be taking action to support us in the weeks, months, and years ahead.
The Trump administration met with Mexico last week. They had some bilateral negotiations as they review CUSMA, the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement. So far, Canada is not part of those talks. I was speaking to the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe. He told me he's worried that we're not part of these discussions. Is BC worried that we're left out to this point?
Well, you know, Ambassador Hoekstra was in British Columbia just a couple of weeks ago and had an opportunity to meet with the Premier and relay his perspectives. We certainly know that the Americans are frustrated with some of the decisions that we've made on liquor and procurement. I would say, as the Premier has shared with the Ambassador, that we are ready, willing, and able to support discussions. We know that the discussions have to happen between the respective federal governments, and we're going to support our federal government and a Team Canada approach to ensure that these negotiations can happen. But let me just be very clear to any American listeners that are tuning into your show today. They need to recognize, when it comes to forestry, but also in auto and steel and all types of manufacturing, these tariffs are wreaking havoc not just on Canadians, but also on Americans as well. And so when Americans go to the polls this fall, they got to give their head a shake to what madness is happening in their country with their longest standing trade partner, their longest standing friendship. And again, we're not taking it personally, but it's hard not to take it personally when workers and livelihoods are on the line here in BC and throughout Canada.
Just quickly to end on this note, you mentioned diversification. I was looking through some of the export data, though. 84%, I think it was at last count before the duties and the tariffs, 84% of Canada's softwood lumber was destined to the United States. Is this something that can be changed? Because, are we just locked in by geography? Is it just naturally the United States is going to be our largest market? Or do you see, as you mentioned, genuine opportunities to actually diversify and sell beyond this continent as the Prime Minister tries to do that by cozying up to new allies, new friends, trying to pave new ground as the American relationship is on shaky ground?
It's a really good question, JP, and it's a question I get from forestry CEOs as well as workers on the ground. My answer is we have no choice but to transform. British Columbia is one of the world's largest exporters of softwood lumber. Just our subnational government in our very large province, one of the largest exporters of softwood lumber. We have to diversify. We are just a dozen days away from Asia and ports. And so my message to those in Japan, South Korea, China, I've got a team in India right now that's messaging me every hour, sharing what they're doing on the ground, as well as the UK and Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, you name it. We are open for business, and we are going to get more of our world-class wood products. And I think the Americans are going to regret the decisions they make. We're going to forge powerful partnerships to ensure that our wood products in British Columbia and throughout Canada build the homes, build the infrastructure that people around the world need.
Let's leave it there. Ravi Parmar, Minister of Forests for British Columbia. Nice to see you, sir.
Yeah, good to see you as well.
Thanks
Take
for
care.
coming in.
Absolutely.